Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs Shaw is a Fast and Furious spin-off movie that features Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham up against Idris Elba as Brixton, this genetically empowered superhuman, also known as Black Superman, who wants to unleash this deadly virus into the world that basically will kill a lot of people. And Hobbs Shaw has to settle their differences and work alongside each other to take him down. We all know that the Fast and Furious movies aren't really known for their story, more so for the over-the-top action and stunts, and you have to realize that as a viewer to enjoy these types of movies. The Fast and the Furious is a franchise that you're not supposed to take too seriously. You can nitpick the living shit out of this movie, how it's very unrealistic and that the story has too many plot holes, but at the end of the day, people just want to see the epic action stunts and The Rock and Statham beat shit up. But the problem is, there's not a whole lot of that. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of fight sequences in this movie, just not as many insane stunts that the Fast and Furious are known for. But the stunts that we did see were awesome. I just wish that we got to see more of them. Most of the time in this movie it would be people talking, figuring things out, you know, the story scenes. And honestly, the story's bad. It's been done before. That is to be expected though. But I'm just like, enough talking. Just give me the action, man. I thought that Idris Elba was great, and he was just this awesome concept of this mechanically engineered superhuman, kind of like the Terminator. He was probably one of the best parts of the movie for me, and that's pretty rare for me to say that an antagonist is the best part of a movie. The fighting scenes with him were probably some of the best action sequences in the movie, and he had this transformable motorcycle which was very fun to watch. He was just such a badass character. The chemistry between The Rock and Jason Statham was great, but only for the first few minutes or so, with them trading insults with each other. But it felt like they were trying too hard, and they kept overdoing the same jokes to a point where it just wasn't funny anymore. Like in this movie, there was a 10-minute scene, it felt like 20 minutes, but a 10-minute scene where they were bickering back and forth, and I'm like, okay, we get it. There were a lot of immature jokes, and this movie didn't have the humor that previous Fast and the Furious movies had. I would say that the humor was very predictable and easy to make as well. It's just two people insulting each other, calling each other names. Basically preschool humor. I mean, we learned that shit in preschool. In my opinion, the best humor is humor that you just don't expect. But when it's there, you're just like, oh, I get it. Like humor that isn't predictable. Like this one scene in the Fast and Furious 6.
Mia, you better hide your baby or...
I'm just playing. You better hide that big-ass forehead.
I know that humor is very subjective because everyone has very different emotional and psychological profiles, but this doesn't change the fact that the main humor in this movie was The Rock and Statham having insult fights like they're 12 years old. Also, it makes their relationship seem very artificial. Like, if they actually hated each other's guts, they wouldn't be making these jokes back and forth. That's like what best friends do. I know that the Fast movies aren't to be taken too seriously, and I'm probably reading too much into this, but when it's an ongoing thing in a movie, it ends up being quite annoying. I was actually surprised with the surprise cameos in this movie, and I would say, without spoiling who of course, that the first cameo actually made me laugh harder than The Rock and Statham did. I thought that the Samoan aspect of the film was very interesting because The Rock said himself that he wanted to introduce his culture to the world. It's like the first time Samoan culture has been presented at such a large scale, but I'm struggling to find out how it fits in the story. Like, it felt forced to be there to kind of just emphasize the theme of family, you know, like fighting on The Rock's home grounds. Although now that I think about it, family has been an ongoing theme in this movie, with it always cutting back to The Rock, his daughter, and his brother, and also the Shaw family. So I can kind of see why they did this, but from a story standpoint, it doesn't really make much sense. I think this movie is possibly the worst Fast and Furious movie, and coming from just having watched all of the Fast and Furious movies in the franchise, this one felt very underwhelming. I'm going to give Hobbs and Shaw a C-. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have you seen Hobbs Shaw? What did you think about it? Please leave a comment about your thoughts below. Like the video if you liked it, and drop a sub to help the channel out. Also, feel free to check out my previous video. Until next time.